Good morning, everyone. I am Deb Heisel. I am the chair of the Events and Professional Development Committee for the Ohio Transfer Council. We have a wonderful presentation this morning from CollegeSource, and I will introduce our speaker in a second. But I want to first remind you that this is a continuing webinar series that occurs about the second or third Friday of every month. Next month is National Transfer Week, if you're not already celebrating. And we are planning two presentations next week. One, a student panel toward the beginning of the week of October 19th. We haven't set a date, but the second one will be a panel of transfer specialists to help you with best practices in making for smooth transitions into the four-year university. So I look forward to that panel discussion. But today we have a really practical presentation from Shelly Jackson, who is the product solutions specialist at CollegeSource, and she travels the country until we turned into a virtual community, helping people with the tool set, which is Transferology. It is used to provide reports and tools to help students with transfer. And learning about this, I think that we will all win and our students will too. So let me introduce Shelly.
Great, thank you, Deb. Well, welcome everyone to the CollegeSource webinar. We're here to talk about the partnership that Ohio schools have with Transferology. So thanks for joining me for this webinar. You can see my email address there. If you ever have any functional questions about Transferology, feel free to reach out to me. I'm the support person for CollegeSource for Transferology. I'd be glad to answer any questions, provide any support training that you all might need. Now, our agenda for today, I'm going to talk about some stats for Ohio and Transferology, give you some fun facts, important data elements that you want to make sure that you have within Transferology, and then a short, brief demo of the student experience in Transferology. I assume you all are aware of what it looks like in Transferology and in the Transferology Lab, but I don't know that. There might be some new staff with us that need to see this. So then we'll look at the tools that you have available in the Transferology Lab. And I want to make sure that I get your questions answered today. I did ask you to bring your questions, which is great. I want to make sure that I can answer what questions I can for you today. So this chart is the Transferology usage from January 1st of this year to August 31st of this year. So this is the students using Transferology, logging into the site. And I just wanted to make you aware that Ohio is the second highest usage for students, right behind Illinois. And you can see those other states that are listed there. Now for the Transferology Lab usage, staff logging into the lab for this year, January 1st through August 31st, you can see Ohio's pretty close to the top there, Illinois being number 1 and Ohio number 3. So you all are using the tool and students are accessing the tool. Now I do want to share some Transferology student usage that we've seen for this year with everything that's going on. As you can imagine, we've had a lot of students that are accessing Transferology. We experienced double-digit increase in U.S. transfer and course replacement searches from March through July of 2020 versus the same time in 2019. On average, we had 124,000 new searches performed by students each month. That's huge. That's a lot of students utilizing the site. May 2020, Transferology usage was the highest ever since we launched the application March 31st, 2014. Nearly 110,000 sessions, which is up 32% from May of 2019. More than 1.5 million student accounts currently exist in Transferology, and over 105,000 new student accounts were added during that time period. So you can see that Transferology is a great tool for students and they are accessing the site. Now, fun fact, Of all the Ohio schools that are part of Transferology, which school has the most transfer articulation rules in Transferology for Ohio schools? University of Cincinnati has 460,000, followed by Kent State with 397,000. So you can see, I think that's the top 7 schools in Ohio, which is great. And University of Cincinnati is the 5th highest number of equivalencies, transfer rules within the system over all of our clients. So that's great participation. I also wanted to just share another fun fact. I don't know if this person is on the webinar with us today, but the most lab logins to the Transferology Lab for Ohio staff. Stacy Odner Sibley, sorry if I didn't say the name correctly, from Columbus State Community College. So that's great. Stacy is using the Transferology Lab a lot for her activities. So let's talk about important data elements that you need to make sure that you have in Transferology. Number 1, and I know we harp on this a lot with Paula Compton and Mitch Wilson, we like to make sure that the equivalency data is up to date for the Ohio schools. So if we're getting your equivalency data, if we're pulling from tests, that's where you're building your equivalencies and tests, we update that information from tests every work night. If we're getting your equivalency data from UAchieve, and there are a number of schools where we're doing that, we pull that data in and update it once a week. We also have a PeopleSoft school, which they've installed the interface for PeopleSoft. We're pulling that data in once a week. And then if you don't use any of those 3 products and you're providing us import files of your equivalency data, where you're extracting the data from your student information system probably, creating that file, giving it to our staff member in San Diego, you get 2 import files per subscription year. So we want to make sure that all schools' data is up to date. As many students are accessing the system, you want to make sure they're seeing the current and up-to-date information. Program information. For any of you that don't know, last November we enhanced the searches for students within Transferology, and I'll show you this when we get into the demo. Students can now search for schools that offer a particular program. So if you can upload a list of your programs to the site, students do a keyword search to find schools that offer that program. That's really crucial information to have in the system now. You want to be part of that search so that you'll show in the results list for students. And then students can also view the program information. Advanced placement. If you ever run the popular courses report in Transferology Lab, you can see that many students add advanced placement courses into their Transferology accounts. 7 of the top 10 courses that are added into student accounts are advanced placement, and we'll take a look at that report when we get in there. So you want to make sure you have that information in the system. Now, optional data elements, transfer pathways. I don't know if any of you Ohio schools have any of the transfer pathways added, but those are the articulation agreements, transfer guides that you can have listed so students can see that pathway. Glossary messages is a great tool whenever you want to explain how a transfer course will be used towards a requirement at your school, or you want to put grade requirements or messages that the course will not transfer or it'll need elective credit. Very easy to add in those glossary messages. And then the reports. Popular courses report, so you can see what are the most popular courses students are adding into their Transferology accounts, and then you can see, do you have that course evaluated? Do we have that transfer rule in the system? And what's nice about this report is you can massage and manipulate the data on the report. Look at schools from Ohio. Look at your top feeder schools. Do you have those most looked at to transfer courses evaluated? And then the unknown equivalencies report. When a student views how their courses would transfer into your school and there are courses listed as maybes, those courses then appear on the unknown equivalencies report. So staff can know students were looking to transfer this course, we don't have it evaluated. Do we want to go ahead and evaluate that for them? All right. Now I'm going to go ahead Okay, it says my share window is closed. Okay, bear with me a minute. Looks like we're having some problems. Okay, if someone could let me know, are you seeing my Transferology screen? Can somebody let me know?
Hey, Shelly, we do not, no. I just
Okay.
made you a complete host, though, so maybe it should give you a little bit more permission.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not getting anything that will let me.
Is it a website? Because then I could just pull it up on mine, and then we could share it that way.
It is a. Has to be logged in.
We see it now.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, when I clicked off the PowerPoint, it just took everything away. I've not ever had that before. All right, so now you are seeing my screen. That's great. So we're going to start with Transferology. Sorry about that little hiccup. So the student site, www.transferology.com. So hopefully you're familiar. We have a lot of information on this landing page for students. And one thing that I just want to point out is if you get students that say, you know, I don't really understand how to use Transferology. What is it really going to do? Well, we do have some videos here on the landing page. The first one, Welcome to Transferology, gives the students an overview so they can learn what Transferology is about. And then they have the two different paths that they can take. Will my courses transfer? So they can see how their courses will transfer to any schools that are part of the Transferology network. And then for your current students to find a replacement course, to find those courses that they can complete elsewhere for transfer back to your school. So keep in mind, you can refer students to these sites, and you're also able to share. If you want to embed these videos on your school's website, you're able to share these videos. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to log in with an account that I've already created. When a student comes into the site, they are going to get a directional page which gives them some more information about Transferology, and it lets them know they have the two different paths that they can take in Transferology. In that top menu bar, will my courses transfer, and then also the find a replacement course path. So starting with the courses tab on the left side of the screen, I'm backwards this morning, a student starts entering in the name of the school that they've attended. We have the Smart Search so they can easily select that institution and then go through and add the courses that they've completed. So hopefully a student is sitting down with a transcript. They can look at that transcript, pull up the term and year for each of those courses they're going to add in their account. Now, just like our catalog database that we have in TESS, many of you probably use TESS, the transfer evaluation system. Students can start pulling up the department, they get a Smart Search, and then it loads those courses for that school for that period of time. So very easy and quickly, a student can go through, click on the plus sign next to any of the courses that they want to add into their account to add in all of that. Completed coursework, courses they're enrolled in now, courses that they plan to complete. Now the standardized exams, this is where a student can add any of the advanced placement, CLEP, DSST, International Baccalaureate information. So they select their type of exam, the year they completed the exam, and then they add that exam into their account by clicking on the plus sign. Now you can see with those courses and that United States History AP exam, I'm not adding those courses with any grades or scores. That's the way Transferology works. We're hoping that students are entering in those courses that they've passed, and this is an unofficial evaluation for the student. But there are ways to depict and let students know what credit you'll award on exams for a certain score, or any of those messages you want students to know about how the courses will be used. And then under military credits, we also have the American Council on Education Military Guide so that our military personnel can select the branch of the service they're in, the year they completed the MOS, the course or occupation, and then as many of you know, this is a really long listing of all of those courses and occupations from that military guide, but they can add those into their account to see if the school will award any credit. So once a student gets all of their coursework added into their account, then they search for matches. Now, hopefully, many of you have the referral link or the referral badge for Transferology on your website. That way, if you're promoting and marketing Transferology, referring students to your website, they can access Transferology directly from that link. When they search for matches, because that link is specific for your school would be the only school in the match percentage list. Like here we're seeing 231 schools. All 231 of those, or 230, would be hidden, and your school would be prominent here. So they can easily then look at that match percentage. Now on the right side of the screen, I mentioned that program search. This is where a student can search for a program. Now I know some of you, your schools utilize UAchieve, and students can run that program directly from Transferology. But this is a keyword search, so they can see if the school is going to offer the program they're looking for. So a student starts here by typing in the name of the program. So if I search for an accounting program, we can now see that it's taken 100 schools off the list. 131 schools offer that accounting program. Notice also, when you add these programs into your account, you can also list the program as being on campus, an online program, or both. So they are able to search for schools that offer a particular online program if they're looking for that. Now I'm going to clear those filters. Student can sort and filter the list with the schools from a particular state. If they're looking for a school with a particular tuition and fee amount, an undergraduate student population, whether they're looking for a public or private school, and then a 2-year or 4-year school. So I've now filtered the list to the schools in Ohio. So we have 48 schools here that were found from Ohio that are part of the Transferology network. And you have at least one course in that student's account where you're awarding some type of credit. You have an articulation rule for one of those courses to say, we're going to award this direct equivalent course, we're going to award elective credit, general education credit, and then it figures up this match percentage on the left side of the screen. So hopefully a lot of you are seeing your school there on the list. I know there's a few schools that didn't come up in this list, but it figures up this match percentage based upon the total courses in the student's account. How many courses has a school evaluated that they're awarding credit? How many have not been evaluated? And then how many have they evaluated because maybe they're not going to accept the course and transfer because it's vocational, remedial, technical. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the 89% match we have with Kent State University. And you know that schools all have some details here. You can see the name of the institution, where it's located. A student can also edit their profile, and they can add a zip code into their account. And I've added a zip code for Fort Collins, Colorado. That's where I live, where I'm from. So then the student can see how many miles away from their zip code that institution resides. Details, whether it's a 4-year, 2-year, public or private, undergraduate student population, and annual tuition and fee amounts. So we click on that 89%. Now we can see exactly how this student's courses would transfer into Kent State. Starting with the matches here. Matches are where Transferology found an articulation rule for that course that we're storing. As I mentioned, we're pulling the equivalency data, storing it in our database from several different resources, tests, UAchieve, PeopleSoft, and import files. So we can see English 1100 transfers in as English 11011. The art history, American history, we can see the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee courses. Now there is another possible tab which we are not seeing here, and that's what's called a miss. If you're a school where you evaluate a course to say, we're not going to accept this course in transfer. It's remedial, vocational, technical. We don't accept those type of courses. You build a rule for that. That will show up under a miss so the student can clearly see that course will not transfer. And then any maybes. These are the courses where we don't have a transfer equivalency, a transfer rule for that course. So it looks like we don't have the advanced placement information in the system for Kent State. Now these are the courses that will display in the Transferology Lab on the unknown equivalencies report for staff to be able to see. On the right side of the screen, the student is able to see information about the school. This comes from the school profile information that we have stored in the lab for your school. Logo, main address and phone number. They always have access to a map so they can see exactly where your institution is located. They have a link to your website so they can easily go look up additional information. And then they have the details that we pull from iPads and the National Center for Educational Statistics to show the type of school, your student population, and your annual tuition and fee amounts. We also have information links to your website. You can have up to 11 different links to different pages on your website that you want to refer students to. And then a student can click on School Profile. Here's where they'll see an image of your campus, of your students, of a graphic, some brief about text. We do repeat those information links because they get buried on the right side of the screen. And then we also show what awards your school offers. So all of this information is stored in the lab. Anyone for your school that has the school administrator role in the lab can go in and update most of this information. So we'll take a look at that when we get in the lab. And feel free, if you want to change your image once in a while, this large picture, that's not a problem. We can update that as often as you want us to. If you want to give it a fresh look, maybe you want to add new about text, that's not a problem. Now, Kent State does have their programs in the system, so there is a programs tab here where the student can then look at those different programs. Notice they also have minors, masters, associates, bachelors, certificates, all kinds of different program information there, which is great for the student. The student can click on that program, and here you can have a brief description about the program and a link to your website so that students can learn more about that program. So that's why programs are important. Not only can the students search for schools that offer that program, but maybe they want to learn a little bit about that program, because if they're going to transfer, they need to make sure that you're offering that program that they're looking for. Now, if a student wants to request information, they click on the Request Information button. It gives them this pop-up modal, and we have this kind of strange shadowing going on with the request information there. I've reported that, so that's going to get changed. But here's where a student can request advising, campus visit, admission, financial aid, veterans resources. They could type in the name of a program, type in any questions and comments, and send that off directly to the school. Now, you have at least one person designated to receive an email when this request is made. That's because we don't want the request to be missed, and that email gives the staff member a lot of great information. What the student is requesting, any questions they have, and how their courses would transfer into your school. And the student's information is also added to a report in the lab that we call the Recruit Students Report. And that report is accessed by anyone with the recruiter role. Okay? So one other thing that we are not seeing here, if I go back to this previous school profile screen, is if there were any transfer pathways added into the system, those articulation agreements, we would have a tab above the image on the right side of the screen that the student could then click on, so they could then pull up those transfer pathways and be able to view that information that you've uploaded for the transfer pathway. So a lot of great information for students to find out how their courses will transfer. Now, find a replacement course path. This is for your current students, so they can log into the system and find those courses that they can complete elsewhere for transfer back to your school. So for this example, I'm going to say that I'm a student at the University of Toledo. Now, what term am I looking to take these courses? Let's say maybe for spring. Again, we have the catalog data, so a student can just pull up that department. They can then click on the plus sign, add those courses into their account. So let's say I'm looking for next spring. I know I need to take either micro or macroeconomics, and I want to see my options of where I could complete that and transfer back to the University of Toledo. I search for matches. Now I get a huge list here. Toledo has a lot of great equivalency data in the system because there's 696 schools where at least one of those courses has been evaluated by the University of Toledo staff to transfer back. So this is a huge list. This is looking at all of that equivalency data we have for Toledo. Now again, I can use the sorts and filters on the right side of the screen. I'm going to say I'm going to be home in Fort Collins, Colorado. So what are the schools where they've evaluated those courses 50 miles away from my zip code? I can see those schools listed. Let's say I want to attend Front Range Community College. I would look to register for Economics 201 to transfer back to Toledo as Economics 1150 Macroeconomics. Economics 202 for Economics 1200. Now, another enhancement that we made last November was to add the course description information here. We have all this great course catalog and course description information. We wanted to share that with the student so the student can then see, here's the course descriptions for those transfer courses. Does it have the content, everything I need, so that I can then look to register for those courses. And there's a print button in the upper right-hand corner where the student could print this information, then check with that transfer school to see if they could sign up for those courses when needed. Okay, so a brief demo of the student site. I just think it's important to refresh anyone, give anyone that's new to any of the schools that background to know what Transferology looks like. Now I'm going to switch over to the Transferology Lab. This is the staff site where you can access the tools that you need. Now the default login page for the Transferology Lab is the school profile and the school management screen. Depending on what roles, what responsibilities you have at the school is going to determine what roles are assigned to your account, and then you can see what tools you can access from that top menu bar. Now you can have as many staff have lab accounts that you need. There's no limit. And this default login page, you can see here, this is where we're going to store that information for your school. Now for part of this demo for the lab, I'm going to be logged in as my demo school that we call CollegeSource University. On the profile preview, you can see this is where we have that large image, the logo, the about text, and all of the details. If you are a school administrator role for Transferology Lab, you will have the edit profile found under the large image there. If you click on that, you're able to go in and update information for your school. Let's say you want to put in some new about text. You can edit that by clicking on the edit button in that area. Let's say you want to add some more information links, because I mentioned you can have 11 different information links here. Click on the edit button there. Now we do have 5 standard links: transfer information, admissions application, admissions information, financial aid information, and registration information. Sometimes we don't have that registration information listed for your school because when I built your account, I didn't know whether to add the registrar's office page, an actual registration page, but you can fill that in if you want it. But notice you can add custom links. All you need to do is click on that button, type in the name of that link as you want it. Maybe you want it to be housing, athletics, whatever it might be. Then either type in the URL or copy and paste and save that, and those links will then be added. Hopefully we have your awards listed correctly, but if not, you can edit that area, make any changes to that information, and then you're able to update your school type on the right side of the screen. That should be listed correctly along with your year type. The student numbers sometimes are a year old. You can update those student numbers, total student and undergrad numbers, anytime you want. Now, there are several things that you're not able to change on this page, and that's this large image and the logo and the tuition and fee amounts. So anytime you want to update your large image, send that image to me via email. Notice that it's a rectangle, so really try to find a rectangular picture because then it fills up the space and it fits in there better. But I'd be happy to update any images anytime. Give it a refresh, give it a new image. The reason the tuition and fees are not able to be updated, we want to just make sure that the number is listed on what's reported to iPads. So if you want that updated, send me those two numbers. Can only be in-state and out-of-state. I know sometimes there are other tuition numbers, but they cannot be listed currently in Transferology. And a link to your website where I can verify those numbers, and I'll get that updated for you. All right, also, you will notice under the About text, the last time your equivalencies were updated. Now, disclaimer, most of the time you can rely on this date. Sometimes we have to do an update to the system and it changes everybody's update. So sometimes it's not reliable, but this will show you, and important because maybe we're getting your equivalency data from UAchieve and we're updating once a week. You built an equivalency in UAchieve one day and you see, well, it's still not showing in Transferology. Maybe we haven't done that weekly refresh. So you can look at this date. Oh, okay, we haven't done the refresh yet. It'll get pulled in the next time we do that update. So that's where that date can come in handy. Now we have other information here that you can update as a school administrator. Who do you want to receive an email when a student requests information with that request information button that I showed you? You can have more than one email address listed. And yes, you can have generic emails. If you want that sent to a generic email that several staff monitor, that's fine. Who do you want to receive an email when a staff member requests a lab account? Again, you can have more than one person listed there. Couple other things to point out. The map pinpoint for your school, you can drag that red pinpoint on the map if you want it to be listed at a different building that's displaying for your campus. When you do that, be sure and save down here with the map marker location save button. And then users, this is where you can add as many users and assign the roles to the users that you need. So you just have to create the user, type in their email address, hit the tab button. If they happen to have a TESS account, it will fill in the information. If they don't have a TESS account, you'll need to fill in the information and then assign the particular roles to the individual. Now you might say, how do I know what roles to assign? Let's go back to the previous screen. Under the Users tab, notice this See Role Permissions link. Click on that. That gives you a handy chart so that you know if you assign that role to an individual, what tools they're going to be able to access. Okay. Program setup. We talked about the programs. Maybe you watched my presentation from our users conference that was virtual this year. Just briefly want to go over this so that you know how to add your programs if you don't have them in the system yet. If you're a school administrator, go to Manage Programs. The first thing you want to do is you want to go to View File Format, say yes. That'll take you into our Documentation Center, where you want to then click on Transferology Programs Import Record Format. This gives you the format you need for this file. So this is a very simple file, a delimited text file, where you set it up in this format, pretty easy, with the program name. You want it to be visible. The program code. This is the one question I get asked all of the time. Well, what do you mean by program code? That's whatever code you use for that program on your campus in your degree audit. Is it Anthropology ANTH? Is it BA ANTH? It doesn't matter what code is in there. It's a required field, but that can be anything you want it to be. And if you're just adding a static list of your programs, for the first year term, put all zeros. For the last year term, put all nines. That means these programs are valid for whenever. And then if a program is suddenly not going to be offered anymore, you can just delete the program. Okay, so just follow this chart. There are some optional columns here. zip code, the classification instructional program code. We thought we were going to use that in our search capabilities. Currently, we are not. So you do not have to add that information, but we might use it in the future. So go through, have somebody create that file for you, give you that file, then you can select to import that file. Pretty easy here. Just choose your file. How is it delimited with a comma, tab, or pipe? Does the first row of that file contain column names? Do you want to get rid of the programs that are already in the system? Or do you want to append to that? So very easy here to import. If that goes successfully, they'll all get added. Notice you can always edit a program and you can always delete a program. Once you have those programs in the system, there's one other thing you need to do. Go to School Profile, School Management, click on General Information, and where it says Programs Enabled here in the middle of the screen, change that from disabled to enabled. Click the Save button in the very bottom right-hand corner, and then your programs will be added. Now we do a refresh from the Transferology Lab to Transferology every 30 minutes. So it could take up to 30 minutes for the programs to display to students. But right away, staff will be able to see programs listed under Advising and Recruiting and Programs. So they'll be there automatically for staff within 30 minutes for the students. So staff can see that program information, and if you're a UAchieve school and you've made that connection for degree audits, staff can run a degree audit directly from this page, just like students are able to. All right, let's talk a little bit about transfer pathways, pathway management. This is for the school administrator role again, and I know there's been some desire by some of the Ohio schools to add these transfer pathways, but you all do a lot of work with the Ohio Department of Education with that great website that you all have with tags and everything else. I'm impressed every time I see how much you all do for transfer and all of that. So I know that maybe this is a duplication of effort, but if you want to add any of these pathways, it's pretty easy. If you've created that PDF document of transfer pathways, you have that document stored in your files. You start out here by adding a partner school. So let's just say we want to pull up, we'll say Milwaukee Area Technical College. We want to add that school. So it adds that school here, and then you click on that number here, which is a 0 for total pathways. Takes you into the screen here where there's a disclaimer. We're just wanting to make sure you realize that you're adding information for your school and that partnership school, that partner. So we just want you to say, yes, I agree. I know I'm adding it for both schools. And then you just click on Add Pathway. I'm going to say I have a BA in Anthropology program pathway that I want to add. I'll pull up my files. Double click on that. It adds that PDF document. Now, it must be a PDF document. And then notice that it's going to automatically display this for students with that box checked. If you don't want that to automatically approve for students, uncheck that box and it won't. Okay, so now I can create that pathway. All right. I've not had that problem before, so I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Okay, not sure what happened there, but this time it worked. So it's added that pathway. Again, the next refresh to Transferology within 30 minutes, this will display to students. So anytime this Me column is checked, that means display to students. Now, this school that I added this pathway with is not a part of oh, it's not approved by that school yet, but they can also make that pathway valid for their school if they want to. They'll get an email to let them know the pathway was added. Do they want to make that visible for their school? Now, staff can also see this under Advising and Recruiting, Program Pathways. You need to pull up your school. Then you can see any of those schools that you've added that partnership pathway with. Click on that icon, opens another tab in your browser. This happens to be a 5-page document of this PDF partnership with that particular school. Now you can also pull pathways in from a test group report. Now I'm not going to go into a lot of details on that because there's a lot about how you create the test group report, but if you wanted to do that, when you add that school, here you do a refresh from tests and it'll pull that group report in and make that visible for students also. You can have pathways to your school. You can have pathways from my school. Okay. Then the tools where you're going to spend most of your time in the Transferology Lab is looking at the transfer equivalencies and the other tools found here. Now I'm first going to go to course bundles. Course bundles is a tool that we give to staff so that you can mimic the student experience. We don't want staff creating an account in the student site because then you're polluting the statistics for your school. Use the course bundles. They're actually easier to use than using the student site. We give you the ability to create bundles to mimic will my courses transfer with that transfer tab, and then find a replacement course with that replacement tab. Just say you want to create a bundle. It looks just like the student site where you can add in all of the coursework the students completed, name the bundle, and then you can search for matches. Now, just to save time, I have a bundle that I created here. I called it Student from YSU, Youngstown State. All of the information for the Transferology Lab is stored in the cloud, in Amazon Web Services. So if you have any policies on your campus about storing student identifiable information anywhere than on your server, then you want to name this generic. You don't want to give it the student's name or the student's ID. So you can come up with a coding scheme. Now notice here that I have these courses added in from Youngstown State. I also have advanced placement. So you add in the coursework, search for matches, click on that match percentage, and you can see all of the details. Now here's one way to depict for advanced placement. For English language and composition, for a score of 3, CollegeSource University will award CO 130, score of 4, CO 150, score of 5. They get both of those courses. So I actually have an equivalency built for each one of those scores with a note that says that score. So you can see all of the details, the matches, the misses, the maybes, the information for the school on the right side of the screen, the school profile, and you can view any of the programs and any of the pathways. So those course bundles, again, are much easier to use. These course bundles are only in your Transferology Lab account, so you can manage them. You can edit a bundle, you can delete a bundle when you're finished with it, whereas if you're using the student site, when you add courses for a student, view the matches, you have to delete each course one by one. Here, you just delete the bundle when you're done with it. So those bundles are very helpful. All right, now let's go to transfer equivalencies, and I'm going to switch over to say that I'm logged in as the University of Cincinnati now. This is where staff can find all of that great equivalency data, all of that hard work that's been done to evaluate those transfer courses. Now notice, a lot of these screens that you come into in the lab, there's a filter. So we're filtering to schools in Ohio because we assume that's what you want to look at mostly. But you can change this filter. You could pull up another state. You could also pull up standardized exams to look at the information, military courses, military occupations, and then click on the magnifying glass that corresponds to that institution, and you can now see the equivalency data. Now we can see here for this microbiology course, there is a start date. There's not an end date on that, but you can also filter to current and future terms only if you want to remove historical data that might be listed. Like if an equivalency is no longer valid, you can remove those from the list if you want to. So pull up that information by the transfer school department. If we look at chemistry, pull up the information by your school's department. If we look at English, and you can also from either list pull up the entire equivalency list. So staff can view all of that equivalency data. Now notice here on this LLC 100 course, there is a note. So you'll see any of those notes and messages that students see in the student site, staff will also see here. And then another great thing, because of all of the Ohio schools being in Transferology, you can pull up another school's equivalencies data and you can view that information too. Let's say I'm going to take a look at Bowling Green State University's information, and maybe I want to see how they'll accept courses from the University of Cincinnati. You can look at that data and you can see all of that different information. Now, if you want to add in messages, maybe you're a UAchieve school, you want to give glossary message to explain an alternate course ID, an I flag, a DP mask, or you want to add messages to explain scores or how courses will be used at your school. Anyone that has the transfer specialist role can find under rule management glossary messages. This is where you can add any of those messages to explain. Now I'm going to add a message here. Don't worry, University of Cincinnati staff, I'll take this off. But if we wanted to add a target course message, again, the first 3 messages are for UAchieve schools only. You use codes for alternate course, DP masks, I flags. Students and staff aren't going to understand those codes. You can give those codes a message to let everybody know what that stands for. Let's say I want to add a target course message. When I evaluate courses, if I'm going to assign elective credit, I give it Art 1XX, Math 1XX, Chem 1XX, so on. So I want, anytime that message is there, or anytime that course number is there, for a message to show that elective credit only will be added. When you add that message, anywhere you've used that course number in your equivalency data, it will automatically show that message in the lab, and within 30 minutes, it'll show those messages to students. Now, what is this fairly new flag that we added, exact target course match only? You wouldn't want to use that because with 1XX, I'm adding the department code, many different department codes. But let's say you have something like architecture 1XX. That's a specific message you want anywhere you award that equivalency. Then you do want that to be an exact target match. Anytime I assign that course number to a course in transfer, I want a specific message to be displayed. So that's where you can add a lot of those great glossary messages in. All right, let's take a look at a couple of the reports. Popular courses. Hopefully you look at this report once in a while. Also notice the filters on the right side of the screen when you come into this report, and I should say this report is for the transfer specialist role. You can see during the last 30 days courses from schools in Ohio that are the most popular. English 1100 from Columbus State Community College. I think it's been the most popular course forever that I've always seen here. 113 students have added that into their Transferology account in the last 30 days. A lot of students. Then in the active rule column, and you can see the definition we just put on there for active rule, if there's a yes, that means we have a transfer rule in the system for you for that course. So really helpful to rerun this list. Look at the courses you don't have rules. Don't include your school's courses in the list. I don't want to see the University of Cincinnati courses because I'm not going to transfer those. Apply that filter. Now you get a list of the courses that you do not have evaluated. Further take this into a filter. Maybe Columbus State is a top feeder school. Pull up the Columbus State courses. Then from here, you can export this list, print this list, and if you're an advanced user and you're using the integration with tests, you can send these to tests. Now, I do have a webinar that I offer every month, usually late in the month, to talk about the test integration if that interests you. All right, so let's take these filters off real quick. I want to show you from all locations, all courses, and we'll take a look and we'll see those advanced placement courses that are on the report. What I counted up was 7 of the top 10 most popular courses are advanced placement. That's why it's important to have that advanced placement information in the system. Looks like we do have it for the University of Cincinnati, so that's good. But again, helpful so you can see what courses you have evaluated. And then hopefully you're looking once in a while at the unknown equivalencies report, again for the transfer specialist role, so you can see the courses that a student was looking to transfer. You don't have it evaluated, so it was listed as a maybe on the student's report. Now I know I've heard, well, those students are just looky-loos. I don't know if I really want to evaluate it. Yeah, I get it. But maybe, you have 20 students that are looking to transfer this chemistry course from Sinclair Community College into University of Cincinnati. You might want to go ahead and evaluate it. So that's a good report to take a look at too. All right, I'm sharing a lot of information. I am almost to the end here, bear with me. I want you to know too that we have some on-demand statistics that you can run at any time to take a look at how many students are viewing the information for your school and what your staff are doing in the lab. And we have a report that we email to designated staff the first of every month. I hope any of you receiving that report have enjoyed receiving that because it's a great report that shows you some really good statistics. If you want to run on-demand statistics, this is for the school administrator role. You have a lot of different reports that you can run here. You always get a description of what the report is. So this is the last 12 months. How many students have been looking to see how their courses would transfer to the University of Cincinnati? Large numbers here looking at that information. Lab reports, a lot of different lab reports. What are your staff using the lab for? Hopefully they're using it to look at the equivalency data. And then that statistical report that we email the first of every month. So this is August 2020. University of Cincinnati appeared in the student match percentage over 61,000 times when students viewed how their courses would transfer. Of those 61,000 students, 1,316 students viewed how their courses would transfer. So that's a great number. And you can see how many students have clicked on this and clicked on that. You also have a lab report, and you can share these reports with anyone else that might need to see them. Okay, I do want to open this up for questions now. So I know that Jonathan will come back and help me. Just know too that at the bottom of the screen, support documentation takes you into our documentation center where you can access written documentation under Staff Transferology Lab at the bottom, where you can access training webinars and training videos. So I do have webinars every month for every role within the lab, and also these videos that you can watch to help with training. Okay, I know it's been a lot of information. Jonathan, do we have any questions from anyone today?
Shelly, yes, we do. So we have one that came in a while ago, referencing the referral link that you were talking about earlier. Could you show us where we could find that referral link?
Great, I'm glad that was asked. So when you log into the lab on the default login screen here, School Profile, School Management, you can get it to that link here under Promote Your School or How to Promote Your School above that large image. This will take you in to show you the referral link, which is one link here. And you can see in this example, it's specific for the University of Cincinnati. The referral badge is this picture and there are 4 sizes of this picture, which has 2 URLs that correspond to it, again, specific for your institution. Also here, we have logos you can use for promotion and marketing and some guidelines. Great question.
Great. We have another one that says, why do some courses show up as maybes when we have had an equivalency and it is listed? This person asking questions on it says, I see this when I hear from students asking for more info and they share their current courses with misses, matches, and maybes.
All right. Well, maybes are the courses where Transferology did not find a match to that transfer course. That transfer course has to be entered in exactly as you have it in your equivalency rule. And if they added it for a particular term, you have to have where it matches up with the term dates on that rule. So I guess I would ask this staff member to send me an email with some examples so we can take a look at that, because I don't know of any issues. Usually if that transfer course and the terms match up, it would show that course as a match. So we might need to take a look at that and see what the issue is. So send me an email, Shelly@collegesource.com.
Great. And we'll send out your contact information as well after this presentation, along with a link to the presentation.
Great.
But we have one more. It is from Deb, and it is about, like, if there's, I think you've referenced a couple like videos and stuff, but are there like how-to guides or any other help available for new users of Transferology?
Well, I feel like we support our products really well. Again, you can access the webinar schedule here. Let me just do that here. You'll see that I have a lot of overview webinars, and then I have webinars for every role within the lab. And here's that test evaluation integration. So staff can sign up for any of these webinars. They're free of charge as often as they want to sign up, and ask me your questions during the webinar if you need to. So that's a great way to do it. And then with the videos, these are videos that are similar to the webinars, but they can be watched at a staff member's convenience. You know, click on the video that interests you. And notice too, in all of the videos I have chapters set up so that you don't have to listen to the entire video if you don't want to. If you're the school administrator and you want to learn, well, how do I add that link? Where do I find that link to promote my school? You can see that chapter right here.
Very helpful. Thank you. That is it for the chat's questions, actually. So I'm going to turn it over to Deb, but real quick, I did make you host at some point. So when Deb's done with her closing remarks, if you could end the meeting, that would be perfect. So go ahead, Deb.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And thank you, Shelly. Your presentation was really super. You certainly showed us so much value for students who are looking for schools to transfer and how their courses will transfer. It's a great way to promote our own colleges and universities too. So I'm really excited about the product. Your presentation was wonderful. I'm glad that all of the videos and webinars are available too, to continue researching and becoming more adept and able to use Transferology. I want to thank all of you transfer people, for attending this webinar, and I look forward to seeing you in October. Remember, we definitely have October 23rd circled for our panel on transitions, and we're hoping to bring you student voices earlier that week. So thank you very much and have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great.
Thank you, Shelly.
Thank you.